Hello, welcome to another of my short chats with members of the LGBT plus community here at York St John's. I'm here today with Phill Gray, who is our Director of International, and very lovely to see you, Phill.
Hi Jane, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, thank you. So we're just having another of my little chats about faith and what it means to different people here. So my opening question for you, as for everyone, is what do you think about when you think about faith?
So for me, kind of when I think about faith, it's really a belief in something kind of bigger, greater than yourself. So faith there are lots of different, for me, lots of different faiths, lots of different belief systems, but it is something, a belief in someone or something greater than yourself, or some things greater than you, and a belief in something beyond our current existence.
Would you describe yourself as a person of faith?
That's a tricky question, Jen. And when you asked me to do this, it kind of made me reflect and think just generally about things. I think recent times have made me kind of be busy and kind of keep myself busy, so I don't really think about the kind of big existential questions. I think at one point I did have a kind of a faith and a belief in something, and when I was younger, I was taken to kind of church and community groups and that kind of stuff. I think I believe in something else, but I don't know what that is. I think, when I was a student, I studied other world religions as part of my degree. When I did a history degree, so I learned about lots of different things. So faith and belief has been there across lots of civilizations and history. So I come at it from there's got to be something, but I don't know what. Personally, I don't know what that something is, and I'm probably guilty, as a lot of people are, just going, I'm too busy to think about. I just kind of think about other things. Generally, I try to live I live by kind of a kind of being kind to other people, thinking about other people before myself. So kind of, I guess I've been picking and choosing bits of different religions and different faiths to kind of just, not as a code to live by, but just trying to be a decent person and a decent human being.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily go, I'm kind of this faith or that faith, but it's having something, but I don't know what that something is.
I think that's increasingly how people approach spirituality, isn't it? To feel like, there are aspects of this faith or that one that really kind of sing for me, but I don't want to have to sign up to the whole package. I wonder whether one of the reasons for that, and feel free to shoot me down if it really isn't, is that for LGBT people particularly, the church's history is not a good one, and it's not a positive one. And that's meant that a lot of people have felt rejected or distanced, or just, that I'm not allowed to have that, almost, that's not something that I'm there for. Does that resonate at all?
Do you know what, Jane? It does a little bit. I think, I realized I was gay when I was 13, didn't come out until I was 15, and then moved to university like literally weeks after my 18th birthday. So, but I remember being like at that influential kind of stage, like 13, 14, 15, where I knew I was different. I think I knew I was gay, but it wasn't, we've got the whole Section 20 thing, which is the whole other thing. But being part of that kind of youth group thing and being part of a kind of Pentecostal church, like, it was welcoming, but there were other gay people and it was just never talked about. It was silenced. It was kind of, essentially, a curtain was drawn over it and no one ever touched it. So it probably did influence that kind of early thinking for me, but partly also like that from the historical perspective, probably why I've kind of been picking and choosing and doing with the bits and pieces, kind of going, the history of some religions isn't, as you say, hasn't been particularly welcoming. There's a shift and a change that you can see, but some of it just takes a really long time to bed in. But then for me, you look at ancient religions and ancient things, you know, the kind of the Greek pantheon, the Roman pantheon, there were clearly gay people there. Like, we haven't just appeared from no, like, we've been around a long time. But I think, you know, thinking if I was going to be negative about it, I would say, you know, there are probably aspects of some religions that have latched onto kind of the more negative side of it and just gone, well, we're just going to write it off and say that you people are bad, you people we don't want to talk about it. So yeah, I think, you know, personally, I had not some like bad experiences, but probably some experiences that cast a bit of a shadow that made me, that have probably stopped me from kind of going all into something and believing it. Part of who I am is like to question, to challenge and ask questions. And I think I personally wouldn't blindly follow anybody or anything without kind of the ability to ask a question. But equally, what I also really enjoy is the fact that, you know, you and I are having this conversation, like, and I've got friends from loads of different religions and different cultures who, you know, we can have those conversations now, but we might not. I was never able to have that conversation when I was younger. So
Yeah.
I think there, you know, there's a, you know, there are questions to be asked, and there are some negative histories. But personally, we go, right, let's draw a line under it. But I don't know if people necessarily want to.
I suppose it depends how affected people have been personally, and also that there are sections of, I mean, not just Christianity, but, you know, Islam and other faiths as well, who also don't want to draw a line under it, who still very much holds to the idea that, you know, if you are gay, you absolutely can't act on it, do anything about it. You know, you have to be celibate, and that's really problematic for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, discussions I've had previously, it's like, you know, it's being gay is just part of who I am, in the same way that, you know, I've got grey hair, I've got blue eyes, I'm right-handed. You know, you can't switch it off. You can't do, you know, you think back to when left-handed people were not allowed to do that. That's in living memory for a lot of people as well.
My granny had her left hand tied behind her back when she was a child. Yeah.
Hey, and so I guess, you know, there are aspects, you know, for me, you know, it's just who I am, and it's just, you know, what you do with it. And I think, you know, certainly for from a religious point of view, I guess, you know, I've got friends who are really religious, and like they feel so disconnected from their faith because of just being told, well, you can come, but just don't talk about it or don't act on it. And I feel really sad for people in that position, having to choose, having to, you know, forcing someone to make a choice doesn't fit well with me, and I don't get that. So if someone asked me to choose, I don't know if I'd be able to do that. No. So I guess I've chosen not to do that. So I've just gone, just be a good person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you're doing pretty well at that. That doesn't sound really patronizing. Yeah. And I think that's really key, because in some ways that forcing a choice on people for who they are is not a choice. It's just who they are. It just builds more barriers. It just makes it impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you think, Jane, think about what's on TV at the moment. So It's a Sin. You've got,
I know,
brilliant, but heartbreaking.
Absolutely heartbreaking. No spoilers.
No spoilers. I don't recommend binge watching it. It took me a very long time. I did binge watch it and just went.
I did towards the end, and then I was an absolute puddle. Yeah.
Yes. So, but you know, one of the characters who's from a Nigerian family, right? Back in it, like you've got the entire family there, and having to make a choice between being forced to go home and do that. But again, like we think of that's in living memory, and I think, you know, whilst that's not my experience, that's not my personal kind of angle, you know, I'm really lucky that my family, and it's not that they don't care, but they don't care. Like they just accept me for who I am. But it took them a while, like when I was younger. But again, we're thinking about the historical context, the historical context of the 80s, which for some people, I guess, is history.
But it's seen as a really good history lesson for that, isn't it? Things like Section 28, where, you know, homosexuality was not allowed to be referred to or taught or discussed or anything in education. I mean, just insane.
It's absolutely insane. But, you know, I went to school in that time, so I remember.
Yeah, me too. I think we're of an age, Phill.
I think we are of an age, Jane. Let's do that. We're not loud. But equally, you know, we also think about some religions are very much based on tradition and kind of those traditional values, and making those changes is really difficult. And, you know, when we sometimes look at these things with the current lens of where we're at now, I think that's unfair to still have that perspective, to kind of judging a culture or a faith based on if they've never had that experience or not had the ability to be open and have these conversations. Like, you know, I love the fact, you know, working with you, we can have these conversations. I think it's brilliant to go just how kind of modern, like it's not even modern thinking, it's just kind of being open to having those conversations in a way that we wouldn't have had these conversations 15, 20, 30 years ago. We just
and wouldn't even have been allowed to in some situations, which is astonishing when you think about how much freedom we have now. Oh, Phill, I mean, I could go on. I'm feeling this with all these conversations, but we're running out of time. My final question to you is just to ask you, what does chaplaincy mean to you?
Do you know what? For me, chaplaincy is it's a really good support mechanism. I think, you know, you and I have worked together for a while now, and I think certainly the conversations we've been having, for me, chaplaincy provides an additional safe space for staff, students, members of the community to go to, whether they have faith or not. And I think a lot of that is kind of down to whoever's the incumbent host there. You know, is it a building? Is it a sense of, for me, it's that safe space for people to go and have a conversation that, and maybe it comes down to like that, you know, into the confessional bit where you can have a conversation and it's confidential, but equally you can have that, you can just sit and have a chat just like we are now. So for me, it's a really useful part of the university that I don't necessarily think people will either understand or maybe they don't want to, or it's just, they don't necessarily know how to do it. And having worked at other universities where they don't have a building or they don't have, and it's connected through, you know, certainly in my role with Direct International, and you know, we deal with students from 100 countries of multiple faiths, backgrounds, cultures. So I think it's important to have a space for people to go to. But I think, you know, there's still some work to do around breaking down the barriers to go, just because you don't identify as this religion, so you are still welcome there, in the same way if you have no faith, or, you know, or you are questioning whatever you might be going through, there is a space for you to do. So it's important, but I think we sometimes forget that how important that opportunity is. People don't want to necessarily talk to the university, but they want to talk to somebody. So I think it's good to give students and staff the option for where they can go.
Someone who gets the university but isn't kind of so far into the structures, maybe. And also that it's agenda free. You know, I like the way that you put that we you know, you can talk to us about anything, anytime, and, you know, it doesn't have to be big issues, and it doesn't have to be just kind of little things. It can be about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, the other thing is it's about that visibility, and that's really hard now when we're not on campus, we're not doing stuff, we're at home. But the fact that, you know, you and your predecessor were visible, on campus, just walking around, talking to people. You know, I remember during Welcome Week, just having you there was just good, like to show people that, you know, it's a person. There are people behind the structures that we've got in place, and as you said, connected, but also kind of distant enough to kind of have that impartiality.
I was basically just sunbathing outside the yellow tent for Welcome Week. It was
great.
One of
those badges in my office. It's great.
Very good, very good. Well, Phill, thank you so much. I'm going to have to stop this here, sadly, but you've been Phill Gray, I've been Jane Speck, and it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Jane.